Good morning, everyone. Miss Rebecca, good morning. Joey, good morning. Welcome in. Glad you're here. October the 5th of 2024. We're going to be in Proverbs 5 to coincide with that date of October the 5th. Get started. It's called The Peril of Adultery is the heading on this chapter. Verse 1, chapter 5 says, "My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Lend your ear to my understanding, that you may preserve discretion and your lips may keep knowledge." Verse 3, Bristow, Oklahoma. I know where that's at. I got a story about Bristow, Oklahoma. Verse 3, for the lips. Now there's a note. Verse 3 through verse 14. For the lips of an immoral woman drip honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But in the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps lie hold of hell. Lest you ponder her path of life, her ways are unstable, you do not know them. Therefore hear me now, my children, and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Remove your way far from her, and do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others and your years to the cruel one. Lest aliens be filled with your wrath and your labor, with your wealth, and your labors go to the house of the foreigner, and you mourn at least when your flesh, or you mourn at last when your flesh and your body are consumed, and say, how I have hated instruction, and my heart despised correction. I have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined my ear to those who instruct me. I was on the verge of total ruin in the midst of the assembly of the congregation. And the note for verse 3 through 14 says, morality and martial faithfulness can never be thrust aside without paying the price. And illicit life robs the purveyors of honor and years. Family fidelity satisfies best. All right. Now we jump all the way back up to verse 3. Hey, Robbie, welcome in. Glad you're here. Same time zone. So we jump all the way back up to verse 3 for the next note. So it says, for lips of an immoral woman drip honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. And the note says, in Israel, the term immoral woman referred to one of three things: idolaters who were outside the covenant, Israelites who had once walked with God but turned aside to worship other gods, those in Israel who were unfaithful to their husbands. Each of these contexts speaks of betrayal and forsaking a covenant. Now we jump back down to verse 11. Verse 11 says, and you mourn at last when your flesh and your body are consumed. This note says this could be speaking of the person's fate in Sheol, or it could refer to sexual transmitted diseases and other physical ailments that can affect people who commit adultery. So And we remember from past studies that Sheol is basically hell. Now we're going to go to verse 12 through 14. Verse 12 starts out, and say, how I have hated instruction, and my heart despised correction. I have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined my ear to those who instructed me. I was on the verge of total ruin in the midst of the assembly and congregation. And the note there says, to hate instruction, despise correction, and ignore the voice of teaching makes a person susceptible to choices full of remorse. Falling prey to lust leads inevitably to the ruin or disgrace of a person's reputation within their community, the assembly, and the congregation. All right, now we go to verse 15. And verse 15 through 20 has a note. Let's see, starting verse 15, drink water from your own cistern and running water from your own well. Should your fountains be dispersed abroad, streams of the water in the streets, let them be only your own and not for strangers with you. Let the fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of your youth. As a loving deer and a graceful doe, let her breast satisfy you at all times and always be enraptured with her love. For why should you, my son, be enraptured by an immoral woman and be embraced in the arms of a seductress? And when we look at that note, it says in this passage, fountains and streams and images are images used to illustrate sex and its boundaries of propriety, pictured here in this foolishness of sexual promiscuity. One should neither seek sex from nor offer it to anyone other than his or her spouse. The next little note goes from verse 18 through verse 20. We go back up there. Verse 18 says, let your fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of your youth, as a loving deer and a graceful doe. Let her breast satisfy you at all times and always be enraptured with her love. For why should you, my son, be enraptured by an immoral woman and be embraced in the arms of a seductress? And the note there says, in erotic language that is similar to the imagery in the Song of Solomon, these verses describe intimacy between a husband and a wife. Sexual expression is given by God for the delight of married couples. When marriage is viewed chiefly as a business agreement, human passion seeks other outlets. It's not a business, it's a love. All right, verse 21. For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he ponders all his paths. His own iniquities entrap the wicked man, and he is caught in the cords of his sin. He shall die for lack of instruction, and in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray. That wraps up chapter 5 of Proverbs. All right, we're going to jump over to Ephesians chapter 6, and we're going to start in verse 10, go through verse 20, and we're going to put on our armor of God this morning. God provides it for us, the whole armor of God. It says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand, stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints, and for me, that utterance may be given to me, that I may open my mouth boldly to make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that I may speak boldly as I ought to speak. Right, we are prepared to face the day. We have our armor on. We have done our Bible study for the day, at least a good start on one. So thank you guys for being here with me today, this morning. And I want to challenge you guys to go be a blessing for someone today. God bless y'all. And we will see you in the morning. This is the bright spot of my day every day, is to get to hang out with you guys for a few minutes. Until next time.